Countdown. Good morning to you. I am Willie Bragg, the host of the Willie Bragg Show. And I hope that everybody's enjoying this holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays in general to each and every one of you. And hopefully 2022 will be a better year than 2021. We can hope, can we? Well, I got home a little while ago from work, and I was just trying to catch up on some online leftist videos. That's what I usually do when I get home in the morning to watch pretty much some of my favorites. And one of my favorites lately has been a YouTube streamer who's been popular in the last year. His channel's picked up pretty good. His name is Jackson Hinkle, and he hosts a show called The Dive with Jackson Hinkle. He's a bit to my left. He's a self-described Marxist-Leninist and, communist or what have you. And I don't identify as a communist nor a Marxist-Leninist. I don't go hiding under the table, quivering in fear over Marxist-Leninists either. Those days are kind of over for me. As I said, when people sit here, right-wing people, talk about communism, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, neo-Nazi Marjorie Taylor Greene decides to go and start calling her political opponents communists. And it's like she says, socialist is just too weak of a word, so she's going to start calling them communists. Well, thing about it is, Marjorie Taylor Greene, how many communist states exist in the world today? Really the only real communist state that exists that has the ideology of the Soviet Union that is still in existence would be Cuba. Venezuela is not really a communist country. It's got a largely capitalist economy. The government of France and Denmark is actually larger than the government of Venezuela. They don't even have universal health care. And the United States likes to pick on and bully Venezuela. They coddle Saudi Arabia, but they'll bully Venezuela. I think it's strategically in America's interest, where it would not hurt Venezuela if the United States decide to buy their oil. What foreign oil will buy, it's better to buy it from Venezuela than to buy it from Saudi Arabia. But hey, I got common sense. The politicians in Washington, D.C. don't. As I said, China is not really a communist state these days. There are people, a lot of liberals, and of course a lot of right wingers who wants to vilify China these days. And China they're not interested in empire building. It's part of their history not to be. I would like to see factories here in the United States, and that's nothing against China. All the outsourcing, whether it's China or any other country. I'm not trying to be like Donald Trump with this tough talk against China. There are problems with China that I disagree with. I don't like their social credit system, things like that. But they're far, far, far more what you would call threats than China could ever be. Vietnam doesn't really qualify. I believe that Laos is still a communist country officially. Then there's North Korea. North Korea is to China and Russia what Israel is to the United States and, well, I guess Great Britain. So, I mean, it's more like a dynasty than anything else. But, as far as trying to scare people, there's a whole lot of fear that goes on. Russia is also the latest country to be fearful of. Oh, I forgot to mention Belarus. Belarus is still a communist state. Again, I'm not going to lose sleep over Belarus, and neither should you all. But I want to talk about the Jackson Hinkle program, The Dive, because what he talked about last night prompted me to look up Vaush. And because Vaush, get this, Vaush favor a CIA backed coup to topple Vladimir Putin. Now, I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin. It's not exactly my idea of what I would like to see as a head of state. But I don't lose sleep at night over Vladimir Putin either. Um, and he is clearly siding with Ukraine over the issue that's going on between Russia and the Ukraine, and there's a lot of problems going on. I talked about what happened with a group of neo Nazis attacking a gay bar in Kiev and actually destroying their property and all of that. So, but today I'm going to discuss Vaush and the whole thing when it comes to Russia phobia. And think about why I think Vaush is wrong, but not just wrong, profoundly wrong, and very surprisingly wrong. With the kind of person Vaush claims to be politically, this is a very dangerous, slippery slope, and I'll go into that in a moment. Now, the thing about Vaush, like a lot of liberals today, they're doing the Russia phobia thing, and because they're claiming that Donald Trump was politically in bed with Vladimir Putin, and that Vladimir Putin controls Donald Trump. Now, I'm no fan of Donald Trump, but I never really thought that Trump was, being manipulated and controlled by Vladimir Putin. And for some on the left to sit there and engage with this Russia phobia, including Bernie Sanders. The thing about it is that they claimed that Bernie Sanders was also being manipulated by Russia, that Jill Stein was being manipulated by Russia. And even though I did have, even Tulsi Gabbard was manipulated by Russia. I got some problems with Tulsi Gabbard today, but still, she wasn't manipulated by Russia. Bernie Sanders was not manipulated by Russia. Jill Stein was not manipulated by Russia. And Donald Trump was not manipulated by Russia. But you know what? The Republicans are doing the same thing, but with Joe Biden, they're saying he's manipulated by China. Joe Biden is not manipulated by China either. So I mean, it's just ridiculous what's going on, and hold tight here. Um, this whole Russia phobia nonsense that took place. It's just, I mean, the people. I mean, it's like people just fall for whatever propaganda that exists out there, and well, suffice to say, um, this person started it. Yep, Rachel Maddow, and RussiaGate during the Trump years is basically the equivalent of today's QAnon by the right. So I mean, not a good place for Rachel Maddow to be. That she is the shit-lived version of QAnon. I believe they call it Blue Anon, RussiaGate. Get it? Blue Anon, QAnon. But the thing about it is, it comes down to this: there's no reason for Russia phobia, not one bit. I don't know what the hell happened. Anyway, I am back. Where was I? This whole Russia phobia thing. I mean, why Russia? It's not a threat. One aircraft carrier. That's all they got. Only 30 bases around the world. Compare that to 1,000 bases that the United States have, which we need to be closing down and minding our own damn business. I mean, and Russia, in spite of how weak they are militarily in today's world, they actually unintentionally helped the United States and the West against ISIS. Not just Russia. Russia, the country that liberals are scared of. Iran, the country that neocons and evangelical Christians are scared of. Syria, the country that the liberals and the Christian right evangelicals and the neocons are all 3 and 4, with the 2 parties are all scared of. Syria. Republicans are scared of Iran. Democrats are scared of Russia. Democrats and Republicans are scared of Syria. None of them are all that bothered by Saudi Arabia. What the fuck? But anyway, Russia, Syria, and Iran pretty much whooped the ass of ISIS. And we should be grateful for those 3 countries doing that, because they did work that we didn't have to do. I am no fan of Pat Buchanan, but I remember when Pat Buchanan was being interviewed by Sean Hannity, and Pat Buchanan actually said this, and I was like, damn, I don't like Pat Buchanan, but I can't argue him. He's correct. Sean Hannity wants to go and start World War III with Iran and rattle just rattle the sabers against Russia as if it's still 1983. So Russia is not a threat, but Russiagate, and think about it is that Vaush, who's supposed to be a libertarian socialist, goes around and he thinks that he goes with the narrative. He goes with the narrative of Russia like a good little Democrat. And I'm not trying to necessarily shit on Vaush. I watch Vaush. I think he can be entertaining at times. I do. I think he can be entertaining. He's not... Most of the time, his takes are okay. But the fact that he decides to go and be taking these cringy takes on Russia, for Christ's sake. He was sounding like I sounded, I don't know. He sounded the way I sounded 15 years ago. And I've taken some cringy positions 15 years ago, that I don't today. I used to be, an equivalent to a Cold War liberal. I used to be that. And, and I'll tell anybody when I get accused of being a communist or communist sympathizer, what have you, I don't go around like, how dare you call me that? No, I don't do that anymore because it's ridiculous. There's no communist threat. And the thing about it is that a lot of communists in the United States historically have done a lot of good things in terms of labor, in terms of racial equality, and that could never ever be taken away. But I don't favor the communist model. I'm more moderate. I favor, the social democratic models around the world. And actually, so does Vaush. Vaush is pretty much a social democrat, very much a DSA, Democratic Socialist of America type. He masquerades himself as a radical libertarian socialist. But he calls himself an anarcho-Bidenist, and he's really a partisan Democrat. That is basically what he is. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a terrible thing. If you're a Democrat and you're trying your damnedest to turn the Democratic Party into a Labor Party instead of the Democratic Party as it is right now, being to the right of the British Conservative Party on economics, if you're trying to make a difference and turn the Democratic Party into a Labour Party or something like the New Democratic Party of Canada, then such persons have my admiration. But if you're just going to be content to have Joe Biden, President Biden, and Vice President Harris, let me rephrase that: President Joe Manchin and Vice President Kirsten Sinema, governing America, and you're just playing for a team, Republicans bad, Democrats good, then there's really, what positive purpose you're serving. Now, the thing about Vaush is that supporting the CIA toppling Vladimir Putin. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like, as a former member of the Socialist Party USA, and one of the worst aspects of the old Socialist Party of America was the time period when a group calling themselves Shackmanites took over the Socialist Party of America. Socialist Party of America, DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, is one of the predecessor organizations to the Socialist Party of America. Real quick summation: the old Socialist Party of America, the party of Eugene Debs, Norman Thomas. And I found this out from my friend Catherine Ann McCloskey, that in the 1960s, the Socialist Party of America, which became the Socialist Party, Social Democratic Federation in the 1950s, changed its name to the Socialist Party USA in 1964, I believe it was. But in 1972, the Socialist Party USA changed its name to Social Democrats USA. A group calling themselves the Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee became Democratic Socialists of America. The Debs Caucus, which was the anti-war faction within the old Socialist Party of America in the 1960s, early 70s, turned into the Socialist Party USA in 1973. So you had three organizations in the early 70s, early mid-1970s, that were kind of claiming to be the party of Debs and Thomas. They all were a piece of that history, but they were all incomplete. Vaush would fit into DSA. And the thing about it is that Vaush is acting like a Shackmanite. And the Shackmanites were Trotskyists that entered the Socialist Party in the 1950s. And people in the Socialist Party of America were fearful. Oh my God, left-wing radicals, what's going to happen to the party? These so-called left-wing radicals became the right wing of the party in a lot of ways, and started favoring things like the Bay of Pig invasions in 1962. And back then, strangely enough, back then, people like Norman Thomas was unfortunately called an anti-Semite because he was one of the first people on the left to criticize the state of Israel. That Israel used to have support on the left at one time. And it's hard to believe that the Communist Party USA in the 1950s were more pro-Israel than Norman Thomas, weirdly enough. Well, in some ways, not so weirdly enough. There is a history to this. But with the shitty treatment of the Palestinians, the left the world over pretty much told Israel, you just cannot sit there and treat Palestinians like subhuman. And this is not to say that everybody in Israel is like this, but it means that as Israel started moving further and further and further right, it slowly evolved into a theocratic state, and not necessarily as fast-paced as Saudi Arabia or Iran, but a lot of the radical clerics are trying to do everything they can to get rid of its secular traditions and get rid of its socialist traditions even. But the thing about it is that the Shackmanites within the Socialist Party of America were like the hardest core rabid Zionists around at the time. Vaush, that's what you're kind of turning into. And I mean, I know you're not a Zionist, but I'm just saying you're kind of turning into someone in that particular tradition. Why do that? I mean, I used to be a staunch supporter of Israel myself until I realized I cannot do this anymore. I have to realize that when I seen how Israel do not allow, like in Gaza, do not allow the people of Gaza to have an infrastructure, and turning that into a large city area prison, and whenever a few rockets fired into Israel, Israel retaliates with massive force, and it's such an unfair advantage, what have you. I don't want anybody shooting missiles at each other. I don't want anybody killing each other on either side. I want everybody to get along. But the point is that's kind of what, if Vaush is not careful, he's going to turn into a neoconservative. And it's a very, very slippery slope is what I'm trying to say. There was nothing wrong with the third camp left Shachtmanites of the 1940s and 50s, but the Shachtmanites that became the neocons later on, there's a whole lot wrong with it. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that were involved, they evolved around the worldview of Shachtman as he shifted toward the right, ended up taking over the foreign policy department of the AFL-CIO, and then ended up becoming wedged in the Reagan Revolution. And unfortunately, you see what happened with the Bush-Cheney time period. One of the worst periods in a modern American history. Yeah, and this is why I say that Bush and Cheney, in a lot of ways, is actually worse than Donald Trump. Not saying Donald Trump is great. Donald Trump's horrible. But Bush and Cheney, significantly worse. And the country were, in some ways, Bush, Cheney, in my opinion, actually governed further right than Trump, strangely enough. But the thing about it is, this is what's happening to Vaush. And he needs to be careful. I think somebody needs to tell him this. Now, think about the Ukraine, the Crimea Peninsula, warm water ports. Russia needs these warm water ports. They're limited. And the thing about it is, I do not want the United States getting involved with Russia or getting involved in the Ukraine. But they're actually getting involved with the Ukraine. And there are actual neo-Nazis in the Ukrainian government. Now, and that means that the United States is indirectly backing neo-Nazis because they're backing people in the Ukraine, the government, basically enabling Nazism. Just as the United States is enabling a genocide in Yemen when we go and sell arms to Saudi Arabia, which actually causes the terrorism against the West. Not Iran, not Syria, but Saudi Arabia, America's buddy, ally. And, Vaush, I'm just disappointed. It's happening with the Young Turks too. They're headed in that direction. But, they'll tell you that the guys from the gray zone, and they'll tell you that, the Jimmy Dores out there, they'll tell you all of these people are horrible people and they're secret fascists or whatever. The United States right now, with the Democrats and the Republicans politically embedded together with the military-industrial complex, they're supporting this Washington consensus of selling arms to Saudi Arabia, which is causing a genocide in Yemen and actually enabling terrorism against the West. The United States is indirectly supporting neo-Nazis within the Ukraine. And this is what's going on here. And we need to go and let people like Vaush know what he's doing is wrong. I mean, when Vaush talks about domestic stuff, I mean, he's okay, but it's easy. Hey, I support Medicare for all too. I support Green New Deal and AOC's pretty to look at, and all that. But you know what? you know, Vaush is just, he's just a cliche Democrat at this point. And, just, I mean, and sit there and to talk the talk of the State Department. And, that's the problem right there. Because the State Department talks absolute rubbish. Anyway, I've talked long enough. I got stuff to do. I may be gone for a few days. Just a lot of stuff going on in my life. Overworked and everything. So over here we have on our chat line Gladys McCoy. Glad that you're on here. Boy, I guess that's how you pronounce that for your information. David Montgomery says Vosk Tech. Okay, I understand. Invalid Arc, how are you? Great seeing you. In a few years, Vaush will come out as a neocon. There's a pipeline, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because as I said, I'm kind of familiar with this. Not that I'm a neocon, because I despise neocons, but I see a slippery slope where he's headed there. I feel that too. Hope your holidays go well. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. Transmark says, how are you? Did you see the clip of a guy? If you can't trust the CIA, then who can you trust? While debating Nico House. I did not see that, but that's just absolutely nuts. I mean, I favor the CIA being abolished myself. I mean, I believe that if we abolish the CIA, we wouldn't have any more problems going on. So, or we'll have a lot of foreign policy dilemma largely corrected. And it just means that the United States need to basically mind its own damn business. Good luck with that, right? Y'all seeing enough Vaush there. Let's see. Anyway, if y'all like what you heard, press like and comment. If you didn't like what I had to say, I wish that little option where it says not like or dislike would still be there, because I'm not gonna get my feelings hurt if too many people dislike what I have to say. I'm very thick-skinned, believe it or not. I say that feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. Feel free to share the also subscribe to this channel. I haven't had enough sleep, as you can tell. And class struggle always. And I shall see y'all in a few days, unless something crazy happened that I have to rush here to the computer to share with you the latest on what's going on. I am going to wish all of y'all a great weekend, and once again, I'll see y'all in a few days. Give me a moment here.